Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Johanna, and for those of you who are new here, welcome. And for those of you who are returning, welcome back. If you have not already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel as I do planner and planner related videos. And if you hit that little notification bell, which is somewhere, then you'll always be notified every time I upload a new video. Now, Tameka from PastriesPumpsandPi, and I'll link both her YouTube channel as well as her Instagram page. On Instagram last week said that she would be doing the Maker's Going to Make. I don't know if it's an actual challenge or if she was just challenging herself, but for every week of March, she's going to do a DIY tutorial on something crafty that's planner related. I don't know what she's going to be working on, but I thought that'd be a great idea, and so I'm going to be doing and again, I'll double check. I'm filming on the phone that I would normally check on, so I can't do that until I edit. But I think it's the hashtag Maker is Gonna Make that mirrors the Miss Maker cover of the planner. I don't have it, so I can't even look at that. But what I'm going to be making is a crochet bow clip as well as a crocheted flower clip. Now, I actually filmed this like 20 minutes ago, but I had some yarn here, balls of yarn, and the lighting was horrible. So I'm hoping, because I've taken pretty much everything out of the way, that the lighting will be much better for you to be able to see this. I also used a smaller hook. The one I'm going to be using here is a 5.5 millimeter, and so that the bow and the flower that I'm going to be making will be quite a bit larger, because the larger you go in hook size, the larger the product is going to be. But I think it might be easier to film on something a little bigger. So what we're going to be doing first is this crochet bow, and it's rather easy, doesn't take up a lot of yarn. And the way that I start it is I start with a magic ring. And so a magic ring, this is the yarn that's attached to the skein of I'm going to use thread and yarn interchangeably. For me, it means the same thing, because when I crochet, I'm not talking about crocheting, so I don't really have to think about the words. I just do the project. So if you hear me say thread, this is what I mean. I mean yarn. I had this in my stash. This is Sea Coral from Red Heart Classic. I don't know if I picked this up in Walmart or if I pick this up in Ben Franklin, a local craft store that we have here. Skeins of yarn, typically, at least for me, run between $2 and $4 if you're doing the 4-ply. And you can see that right there. This is 4-ply yarn. I never really understood what that meant, but that is the weight of yarn that I typically work in. Some of the baby things that I've done can be as small as a 2, although typically that's a 3 weight. But yeah, all of the yarn balls that you typically buy in Walmart or whatever your craft store is will have the weight of it, and then usually the crochet hook sized for the weight. So a 5.5 is actually the crochet hook for this weight, but you can use smaller. It makes it a little bit harder to work with. But again, if you're just looking for some cute bows to make relatively easy, you can pick up Crochets in Walmart, Joann's, Hobby Lobby. I'm assuming, I've never been there. And you can also pick up yarn. Now, the other thing that I had, which was an entire, let me show you. So when I'm done with yarn, or when I'm nearly done with a skein, I will just ball up the remaining part, and then I just keep it in this container here. And in the video that I just did, I had this off to the side, but it puts too much of a shadow on the work itself, and because it's in ball form, every time I pull, it would actually roll off my desk. So I figured I'll reshoot, and then I'll use it on the skein so that it won't roll away. And I do for most of the projects that I do for crochet, I do pull from the middle because it's just easier, because if you pull from the one that's on the outside, then this keeps rolling and it's just annoying. All right, so let's get started. So for the bow, the way that I make mine is I start with a magic loop, and so this is the beginning of the thread, and so I keep that here to the right, and I'm going to wrap this 2 times around my fingers, and it doesn't really matter how long this is because eventually I'm going to be snipping this away, but I do want to make sure I have a tail. So I've got the tail here and it's wrapped around twice, and then I've got the connecting yarn here, and that's where this goes, and then it's connecting to the yarn skein right there. I'm going to take my hook, go underneath these 2, and I'm actually going to pull the working yarn, and the working yarn is just the yarn that's attached to either the ball or the skein, and I'm going to pull that so that it creates a loop, and then I'm going to pull one more time so that it creates a chain, and a chain is just that loop that is secure. Okay, so that's my magic loop, that's my starting point, and then this is the one that's attached to the yarn itself. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to do a chain of 3. The one that's on there does not count, so we're going to pull yarn. So this is the working yarn. We're just going to pull through that loop. We're going to pull through a second time, and we're going to pull through a third time. Now this may seem a little bit more awkward than it needs to be, but if I were crocheting for my own purposes, I'd have my arms flush to my body. For filming purposes, I actually have them extended in front of me so that you can see this. So hopefully when you're doing this, it won't be, or it won't feel as awkward as it feels for me right now. Now I'm going to be doing double crochets, so I'm going to yarn over so that I've got the 2 loops right there. Then I'm going to stab my hook through that hole that we made, and then I'm going to pull yarn through so that now I have 3 loops on my hook. And then to make a double crochet, you're going to pull through 2, and then you're going to pull through 2, and that closes that off so that you have those 2 stitches. Now this, if you're new to crochet, then this is not going to be the video for you, and you can definitely just Google easier crochet projects, but this just assumes that you have a little bit of crochet knowledge. So we're going to do another double crochet, so we're going to yarn over, stab through the middle, pull through so that we have the 3 loops, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And again, yarn over, stab through the middle, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And then we're going to mirror what we started with. So we're going to chain 3 times. So we're pulling through the loop 3 times. And then we're going to secure this down into the magic ring. So we're going to stab in. We're not going to yarn over like we had been doing. We're just going to have that loop there. Stab in, pull some yarn, and then pull through that loop that we had, and then that gives us one side of the bow. And it doesn't look like much now, but I promise it will look like a bow when we're done. So we're going to do a 2-sided bow, so we're going to chain up 3 again. We're going to do a double crochet, so we're going to yarn over, stab through the hole, pull through the loop, so we have 3 chains, pull through 2, and then pull through 2, yarn over, stab through the hole, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over, stab through the hole, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And then we're going to chain 3, so pulling through the loop 3 times, and then we're going to secure it to the middle by doing a slip stitch. We're going to make this rather big because we're going to need to finish this in a second, but that is your bow, and that does not look like that at all. So how do we finish this? Well, we've got that starting yarn, and then we've got the yarn that's attached to the ball or the skein or whatever it is you're working on. So we're going to scooch this to the side so that we can see those 2 yarns that we started out with. And we're going to pull the starting yarn, again the one that's short, just to see which one of those 2 move. and that one closest to the project is the one that's moving. Now, the reason that's important is we want to actually close this back loop, and the only way to do that is to pull on this loop here. So we're pulling on the loop that was moving when we pulled on this, so that when we pull on this again, it closes our bow. Okay, now we're still attached, so we're going to need to deal with that. So we're going to put this back through the loop, pull the yarn that's still attached to the skein so that it's just a shorter piece of loop versus that really big one. And then we're going to pull through one final time, and we're going to cut it off the skein. And we're going to pull that tight, and we're going to pull this one tight so that it really closes out that middle hole, and now you've got a bow. Now, in order for this to tie nicely in the back, I'm going to take one of these and wrap it from the bottom around 2 or 3 times, cinching a little but not too tightly, so that the yarn ends in the back. And again, this is way more fiddly than it needs to be. And then we're going to go the opposite direction. And again, 2 or 3 times, so that both of my yarns are in the back, so it's just easy to tie. And that's why I wrap in the opposite directions, so that happens. And then I will tie it in a knot. And then I will tie it in a knot again. And that is my completed bow. Now, this was made with a 4mm hook, and this is a 5.5mm hook. So again, if you do use a larger or smaller hook size, your finished product can be potentially bigger or smaller accordingly. And I think this would actually make a cute size for a planner thing as well. The way I would finish this off is I would actually snip this, and that's how I finish it off for a clip. If I were to put this on a crochet project, I would actually weave those ends in, but because I'm going to be utilizing glue, I don't need to do that for the planner clip. So I'll take one of my paper clips, and again, if you have access to those really cute ones, the really wide ones or the gold ones or whatever, I mean, you can use pretty much whatever you want to, but this is what I have. And then I will thread this through just because I want it to go in, and that can be a little fiddly, but you can just be patient and work that through, and then slide it so that the part that actually will clip on your planner or planner page or whatever is there. And then to make sure that this does not slide around, I would either use a glue gun, because that'll be the fastest method to make sure. You just need to put a little bit of dots there and there, or you can put a little bit of E6000 as well. So again, really it's just so that it doesn't move around. If that doesn't bother you, then you don't even have to do that step. But that is the little crochet bow. And I don't have a planner next to me, but I do have this little notebook, and it would just clip on there and is super cute. So this is the first part of the tutorial, but again, I do want to give you an option. So if you didn't want to do a bow, you can do a 5-petal flower, and this is actually very similar to that right there. So let's get started. Now this one starts a little bit differently, and the other one we started with a magic ring, and you can certainly do that with the flower. But the other way that you can start is you can start with a starting chain. So the way that I start my starting chain is I have the beginning of the yarn, and I wrap that around in a figure 8. So I've got the yarn between these 2 fingers here. I wrap it around my pointy finger, underneath my thumb, around my thumb, and then I'll capture that end in between those two fingers. So again, I have a figure 8. Then I'll take my crochet hook, I'll place it so that I've got it in this bottom loop here, and then I will pull this loop through it, and that gives me a starting chain. Now, if you're new to crochet, I've never seen anyone start their crochet projects that way, but that's the way that my mother taught me, and she learned in Germany. And I think this might be similar on how you cast on for knitting, but I don't knit, so I couldn't be 100% sure. So if that's just a little bit too complicated, you may want to just YouTube starting foundation chain, because there's at least 6 ways that I can think of that I've seen people do. I don't know how. That's the only way I know how to start this type of foundation chain. And once you have the loop on, you're going to create a chain of 6. So that's 3 where we pull through the loop, and that's 4, we pull through the loop, 5 and 6. So we've got 6 chains here attached to our hook, and then we're going to actually just stab through the first chain, pull the yarn through that first chain as well as through the loop that we had on our hook, and then that gives us a circle. Now the difference between these two methods, the magic ring and just having a chained circle like this, is our finished product will actually have a hole in the middle versus this one where we're able to cinch up really tightly. So this will look very similar, where we're going to chain 3, and then we're going to yarn over and stab into the hole, chain through 2, and then pull through 2, yarn over, stab in the hole, pull through 2, 2 again, that's our double crochet 2 times, yarn over, stab through the hole, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And we do want to finish up the petal, so just like we did in the bow, we're going to chain 3, stab through the hole, pull through, and then pull through, and that's our slip stitch. And because we're going to be working quite a bit of stitches, we're actually going to want to squish this to one side. And again, this is just way more awkward looking, just because I'm trying to do it for camera. So that's petal 1. We're going to do that 4 more times. So chain 3, pull some yarn, and we're going to yarn over and do 3 double crochet. So that's the yarn over, stab in the middle, pull through. We've got the 3 loops on the hook, pull through 2 and 2 again, yarn over, and finish out that 3rd double crochet. And if you ever get lost, you can count back. So this was our chain 3, this up here. This is our first double crochet, this is our second double crochet, that is our 3rd double crochet. And then we're going to finish this petal by chaining 3, and then stabbing into the middle, pulling, and doing a slip stitch. So that's 2 petals, and if you notice, that's kind of how our bow looked. I wouldn't recommend doing this type of bow with the starting chain, because again, you can't cinch this close. So the magic loop is actually better for that particular project. And we're going to do 3 more petals, and I think I'm just going to fast forward through this part. Alright, so we've got the chain of 3, 3 double crochet, and we're just going to finish this by chaining 3, and then slip stitching in the hole to complete. And then just like our bow, in that final loop that we have, we're going to pull through, and then we're going to cut, and we're going to pull that through so that gives us a nice knot for the project. And then that starting loop that we have, we can pull on it a little bit, and it will cinch up the middle a little, but not as much as the magic ring. And then we'll just play with it so that, you know, we get the petals on a equal or more equal setting. And because this particular project was intended for a planner clip, I'm just going to tie this in the back of it just so that it's secure. If I were adding this to a crocheted piece like a hat or a blanket, I would actually weave these ends into the flower itself, and then also make sure that the string is long enough so that I can sew it into the project. But that's our flower. Now you can certainly leave it as is. You could also glue or sew in a button, either one of those regular 4-hole buttons or pearl or something like that. I don't have one that's near me, so I can't show you what that would look like. But because again, this is for a planner clip, I would just snip that because I don't need that. And then add it to my paper clip. Thread this through. And again, if it didn't matter whether it moved around, then you certainly wouldn't need to glue it. But if you wanted to make sure that it didn't move around, then I would certainly recommend either a hot glue or the E6000. The hot glue definitely would work quicker, and if you're just doing hot glue and you're not covering it, then that's fine, because basically you just want to make it so that it doesn't move. But if you want there to be a backing on this, sorry, let me finish this. And what I mean is, this is a bow that I had made, I had in my stash, and then I glued a puffy sticker to the back of it so that you wouldn't see the glue. If you're going to do something like this for the back of your projects, and because you didn't want to see the clump of glue, I would definitely recommend doing hot glue because it's a quick adhesive. But I'd also do E6000 because it's a permanent adhesive, because I found in some of the other projects that I had that I only used hot glue, and eventually this backing piece actually peeled away, and that just means I have to do it again. So again, if you don't mind it moving, you don't need to glue. If you want to glue and you don't mind the look of the glue, then you can leave it as is. If you want to cover it up, then you could actually put a button on the front and then a big button on the back. But again, use hot glue so that it's an instant bond, but use E6000 so that it doesn't fall off. And then make sure when you're putting it back that you make sure that you can actually clip this on your project. Now I enjoy doing crochet. I can tell you right now, I don't enjoy doing crochet on camera because my shoulders and my arms are killing me, just because it is so awkward to do. Plus I know the lighting is going to be an issue because it casts the shadows. So I'm hoping that you could see that. The next 3 weeks will not be crochet related for the Maker's Gonna Make March challenge that Tameka is doing, so that should be easier to follow, just because the lighting issues and the working issues should be a lot easier. But again, we've made a crocheted bow and a crochet flower that you can attach to your planner, and as always, aloha!